He simplified tennis players' clothing by shortening shirt sleeves and added style for fashion enthusiasts. How did René Lacoste's polo become famous all over the world? What made the company temporarily abandon the famous crocodile on the logo? And why has the luxury brand been associated with football hooligans for decades? The father of the legendary brand was the famous French tennis player René Lacoste. He started playing sports quite late, at 15. He felt immense pressure from father, who opposed training. But thanks to stubbornness and determination, René achieved brilliant results on the tennis court, and later in business.
René became one of the Four Musketeers, French tennis players who dominated the world courts in the 1920s and 1930s. The other three are Jean Bourratria, Jacques Brugnon, and Henri Coche. Lacoste won 7 Grand Slam tournaments and twice became the best tennis player on the planet, in 1926 and 1927.
The Frenchman was nicknamed Alligator in sports.
Each match of René Lacoste was like a show because he behaved quite coolly, fighting for every ball, every serve.
The Reptile Association flattered the tennis player. It's unsurprising the crocodile became a main feature of the company's logo. Another version suggests it began with René's trip to Boston for the Davis Cup.
They were walking with their coach past the window of one boutique and they saw a crocodile leather bag there. And, according to one version, René made a bet with the coach that if he wins one of the key matches, then the coach owes him to buy it.
The Frenchman lost, but he seemed to like the crocodile bag so much that he decided to sew the emblem with the predator first on his clothes, and then on things of his own brand. René, by nature, was a person who didn't wait for change. An engineer by training, Lacoste did not plan to put up with inconveniences on the court. He made life easier with many inventions.
For a very long period of time, he could not find a sparring partner. Somehow he tried to solve this problem. And thus the cannon appeared, the tennis cannon, which serves the balls itself. And, accordingly, this way it became easier to train.
In 1963, the Frenchman made a real technological revolution by proposing to replace wooden rackets with metal ones. This boosted the shot power and game dynamics. Non-tennis player René did not stop there.
One of the most common injuries in tennis is hand injuries, which is logical in relation to various dislocations of the shoulder, dislocation of the hand. And all of this is caused by the vibration at impact. René was one of those who came up with the vibration damper. This is a special sticker on the racket that overcomes vibration.
René did not like the clothes in which he had to perform at competitions. Long sleeves and stiff collars hindered movement. One day, Lacoste spied on the idea of wearing short-sleeved shirts from polo players, so in 1927, the 12-12 model appeared, which became the prototype of t-shirts from the legendary brand.
It allowed for easier movement and a much more comfortable feeling on the court. It caused a certain revolution in clothing, although any tennis federation was not very happy, because they considered that the very appearance of the athlete was a little provocative.
But the athletes appreciated the comfort, and they still perform in polo shirts. René's immersion in sports helped him understand his target audience. So, soon there were also light sneakers for playing tennis from Lacoste.
René Lacoste officially registered his business in 1933. By that time, he had completed his sports career and was immersed in business. He partnered with French entrepreneur Henri Gillier. The company was named La Société Chemise Lacoste, that is, shirts from Lacoste.
The company produced clothes and shoes for tennis, golf, and sailing. Naturally, sponsorship of famous athletes helped to successfully advertise. Today the face of the brand is Novak Djokovic.
The difference with the tennis community that supports Lacoste is that they wear this brand not only for competitions and various tournaments, but also at different events they organize, such as charity or social gatherings. So they are always brand ambassadors.
Products from René in the last century began to be strongly associated with sports success. Quickly, not just professional athletes loved it. Lacoste clothes were valued for convenience, design, and high-quality cotton knitwear.
The logo was first placed on the outside of clothing because before it was considered flashy. And here is such a small detail that a crocodile appeared on Lacoste's clothes in a conspicuous place. It spread very quickly. Many stars of not only sports, but also politics and actors liked it very much.
For example, Dwight Eisenhower and John Kennedy could be seen in alligator polo. The company entered the American market in the 50s by merging with Izod. In the 90s, their paths diverged as Americans wanted democratic pricing, while the French insisted on premiums. Hong Kong's Crocodile garments boldly used a reptile image as a trademark. The litigation with Lacoste lasted until 2003, until the court ordered the Hong Kong company to remove the crocodile from the logo. By the way, in 2018, the French brand temporarily abandoned its logo, releasing a limited edition of polo shirts featuring images of 10 endangered species, including the Sumatran tiger, Jovan rhinoceros, and California condor. Funds were transferred to the International Union for Conservation of Nature.
I'm not sure if it impacted animal conservation or if fewer animals went extinct after that marketing campaign, but there's no doubt that Lacoste drew attention to itself in terms of both profit and brand recognition. They definitely came out on top.
Such an action seems to be an attempt to make amends a little to the nature that production causes. In 2011, Lacoste came under the gun of Greenpeace in the Dirty Laundry project. Environmentalists discovered over a dozen global brands use toxic dyes in clothing and shoe production. From factories, hazardous substances enter rivers. Among the companies with a tarnished reputation were Lacoste. In the 1950s, the French brand made another breakthrough with the release of a collection of colorful polos. While competitors' products were usually in restrained muted colors,
Lacoste often experimented. This is still their feature, all these rainbow-colored polos.
In the 70s, Lacoste unexpectedly changed its own history. The French clothing brand began to be associated with football hooligans.
They considered it a very cool trophy to go to an expensive store and steal some polo from there. And this happened historically, because they loved to steal Lacoste.
Clothes from the luxury brand were used by hooligans for camouflage.
They dressed at the peak of their inception, as we usually see the skinhead subculture. These are heavy clothes, large grinders, large voluminous jackets, bald heads. And such people are quite easy to notice. This was successfully used by the British police.
So, it became harder for participants from so-called firms to get on the radar, until one of the ultras had the idea of luxury camouflage.
When you look like a young British dandy in an attractive polo shirt from Lacoste, when you have white sneakers, beautiful jeans, you are dressed in high fashion, and so on. The police do not really want to find fault with such young guys who seem to peacefully walk around the cities.
Of course, this trick was eventually figured out, but the French brand in the minds of users was associated with football hooligans for several decades.
But it seems to me that Lacoste has never benefited from this. On the contrary, it actually hurt the brand, since it still leaned towards luxury. This issue affects both Lacoste and Burberry, which has also faced it for a long time. But, nevertheless, gradually they survived this trend, and today this association with football hooligans is gradually disappearing.
Football hooligans also grew fond of brands like Stone Island, Fred Perry, Fila, and Dr. Martens. In Europe, in the 90s and early 2000s, sales of the French brand steadily grew annually by 10 to 15%, but in the American market at the same time they fell.
The brand made a certain mistake in its positioning. Very often, the brand's items started appearing in mass-market stores, like Walmart and others, and because of that, the brand lost some of its prestige.
Product placement investment improved the situation. In Hollywood films, Lacoste clothing was worn by Alain Cielo, Gwyneth Paltrow, and David Duchovny.
The cost of one such native product placement in a film could reach up to $3 million, which led to an incredible sales success, with certain items seeing 1,000% increase in sales, especially those worn by these famous actors.
In 2012, the company ceased to be the property of the French Lacoste family. The controlling stake ended up in the hands of the Swiss joint stock company Moers Frères, which also owns the clothing brand Gant and the retail chain Manor H. Advertising from Lacoste is always elegant, charming, and creative. In 2021, the company won the Grand Prix at the Cannes Lions. A violent quarrel between two young people causes an earthquake. The house overfills, walls crack, and eventually splits in half. The couple barely escapes death, reconciles, and does all this in clothes from a French brand.
This work has developed a very strong marketing message, which, perhaps, no one has thought of before. Lacoste demonstrates that when people quarrel with each other, are in conflict, they rarely think about what they look like. Frankly, a lot of people don't care about how they look when they are in a quarrel.
Lacoste draws attention that in its clothes you will look stylish even during the hottest quarrels, even when the world around you is collapsing.
They received the award because they caught the insight that no one had even thought about before them.
The famous French advertisement was the timeless video. The guy is searching for a girl he liked instantly at the station.
And all this time eras are changing. So, since the creation of Lacoste 90 years ago, they've dynamically moved through time, with changing hairstyles, outfits, and evolving styles along the way. It is clear that all these clothes are Lacoste clothes. And it's incredible. It is a very powerful strategy. The brand very accurately played on the emotions of potential buyers. People want to be involved in such a deep story. They want to convey that, whether it was 90, 50, 30, or 20 years ago, people were falling in love, experiencing incredible emotions, all while wearing this clothing. And this shapes the perception of the brand. Therefore, it is very cool. We can say that Lacoste is masters of making a full-fledged cool movie in a minute and a half.
The French brand uses even difficult quarantine times to show creativity. This is clearly evidenced by its 2021 promotional campaign In the Eyes of a Crocodile during Roland Garros, one of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments.
They have developed a campaign where judges, ambassadors, ball boys, they are dressed in Lacoste uniforms, and they have a small action camera on the crocodile, which shows a lot of backstage.
So, despite the COVID restrictions, Lacoste shows viewers a detailed and exclusive picture. The French also surprised their fans with the latest Fall-Winter 2021 to 2022 collection. They partnered with the brand Peanuts, famous worldwide for its comic strips and cartoons. Cartoon characters, unlike typical Lacoste designs, appeared on polos and sweatshirts alongside the alligator.